Picture a young man standing in a dealership parking lot at dusk. He is 26 years old and makes $43,000 a year before taxes. The car in front of him costs $72,000. The salesman is smiling, talking about monthly payments. The numbers barely make sense, but the man is not listening to numbers anymore. He is listening to a voice in his head saying this car will change everything. 3 hours later, he drives off the lot in a vehicle that will consume 60% of his monthly income for the next 7 years. This is not stupidity. This is psychology, operating at a level most people never examine. People who buy cars they cannot afford are making decisions that seem irrational from the outside. Financial advisors call it a catastrophic mistake. Family members call it foolish. Friends might joke about it or quietly judge. But beneath the surface, these purchases reveal fundamental aspects of human psychology about identity, status, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and who we want to become. Research in consumer psychology shows that car purchases are among the most emotionally driven financial decisions people make. The gap between what someone needs and what someone buys reveals their psychological state. There is a man named Marcus who lives in Phoenix. He works in sales for a tech company, earning $48,000 with commissions, sometimes reaching $60,000. He drives a Mercedes C-Class costing $850 monthly. Insurance adds $300. Total car expenses, $1,300 monthly. After taxes, his take-home pay is $3,800. 1/3 of his income disappears into a car. His apartment is basic. He has no savings. But when he pulls into the office parking lot each morning, something happens. Colleagues notice. Clients notice. That moment of recognition feels worth the financial sacrifice. This reveals a core psychological driver. Status anxiety. Humans constantly measure themselves against others. We evolved in groups where social hierarchy determined access to resources. Those instincts found new expressions in modern society. Your car broadcasts your social position more loudly than almost anything else. It is visible, public, announcing something about you to everyone who sees it. For people uncertain about their social standing, a car becomes a tool for forcing recognition. Psychologists call this compensatory consumption, buying things to compensate for perceived inadequacies. Someone overlooked at work buys a car that demands attention. Someone who grew up economically inferior buys a luxury brand to prove they escaped that status. The car becomes proof of worth when other validation feels unavailable. Many people buying cars they cannot afford are investing in their future self. They believe owning this car will help them become the person who can actually afford it. There is logic here. Showing up to client meetings in a luxury vehicle might lead clients to assume success, leading to better deals. It is a bet on upward mobility, a gamble that image can create reality. The problem is this bet often fails. The car payment prevents actual wealth building. Instead of saving for investments, every dollar goes to maintaining an image. The person gets stuck working to afford the car that is supposed to prove success, never reaching actual success. There is also temporal discounting at play. Humans value immediate rewards more than future benefits. The pleasure of driving that new car today feels more compelling than having savings in 10 years. Our brains prioritize the present. This instinct works against us in modern financial contexts. The person buying the car chooses immediate emotional satisfaction over long-term financial stability. Credit availability makes this psychology more powerful. When you can drive off with minimal down payments spread over years, the pain gets diluted. $800 monthly sounds manageable. Saying no to $72,000 cash would be easy, but saying no to a monthly payment requires different resistance. Dealers build their sales model around monthly payment psychology rather than total cost. Social media has intensified these dynamics. Previously, you compared yourself to neighbors and coworker. Now everyone compares themselves to everyone. You see influencers driving luxury cars, former classmates posting new vehicles. The pressure to keep up has exploded while wages stayed flat. Cars have become a primary way people try to bridge the gap between aspirational lifestyle and actual income. Consider the identity component as well. For many people, especially men but increasingly everyone, cars are tied to self-concept in profound ways. Someone who sees themselves as successful needs a successful person's car. Someone who values adventure needs an adventurous vehicle. Someone who cares about environmental responsibility needs a car that reflects that. The vehicle becomes part of the story they tell themselves about who they are. Driving a cheap practical car might make financial sense, but it creates cognitive dissonance if it contradicts their self-image. People will often choose psychological comfort over financial logic. There is a darker element worth acknowledging too. Some people buy cars they cannot afford out of desperation for control and dignity. When someone feels powerless in most areas of their life, when their job is unfulfilling, their relationships are difficult, their prospects feel limited, making one big autonomous decision can feel incredibly important. Choosing an expensive car becomes an act of agency. It says, at least in this one domain, I get to decide. I am not completely helpless. This is obviously not a healthy coping mechanism, but it explains behavior that otherwise seems completely self-destructive. The car industry understands all of this at a deep level. Marketing is specifically designed to trigger these psychological buttons. Advertisements rarely talk about gas mileage or reliability. They talk about freedom, success, adventure, masculinity, sophistication, rebellion. They are selling identity, not transportation. And they are remarkably effective at it. Billions of dollars get spent each year studying how to make people feel that buying a particular car will solve problems that have nothing to do with transportation. Financial literacy education often misses these psychological dimensions entirely. People are told to make better choices, to be more responsible, to think long-term. But knowing what you should do and actually doing it are completely different things when powerful emotions and identity needs are involved. Someone who intellectually understands that buying an expensive car is financially unwise might still do it because the psychological benefits feel more urgent than the financial costs. The interesting question is whether these purchases ever actually deliver what people hope for. Sometimes yes. There are cases where projecting success genuinely creates opportunities that lead to real success. The person who shows up in a luxury car might win a client they would have lost otherwise. But more often, the car becomes a beautiful prison. The payments never end. The initial thrill fades. The status it provided gets normalized. Meanwhile, the financial stress continues, sometimes for years, creating exactly the kind of anxiety and limitation the person was trying to escape. Understanding the psychology of people who buy cars they cannot afford reveals something important about human nature. We are not primarily rational economic actors making decisions based on cost-benefit analysis. We are emotional beings navigating complex social hierarchies, trying to construct and maintain identities that feel coherent and valuable. We make choices that prioritize psychological needs over financial logic because those psychological needs feel more immediately real. The person signing that car loan is not ignoring the numbers. They are weighing those numbers against feelings of inadequacy, desires for recognition, hopes for a different future, and needs for control and dignity. In that moment, the emotional math outweighs the financial math. Standing in that dealership parking lot, watching the young man drive away in a car he absolutely cannot afford, you can see all of this playing out. He is not being stupid. He is being human. He is trying to solve real problems with an expensive solution that probably will not work. But the problems he is trying to solve, the need to feel valued and successful and in control, those are legitimate. The tragedy is not that he wants those things. The tragedy is that he has been sold a very expensive lie about how to get them. That car will not fix what is broken. But for the next few years, every month when he makes that payment, he will keep hoping that somehow it will.